Premium Support VidBit videos. Today we're going to be creating a new SEP 14 environment by using replication with your old production SEP 12 environment. And when we're done, we're going to migrate all of the SEP 12 clients over to the new SEP 14 environment. There's quite a bit of detail involved in this, but it actually is very safe. It's safer than any other method that you could use. So first, we need to prepare your environment. 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time, you want to go into your client group and click Policies, and then click General Settings. And click Tamper Protection. And we want to make sure that tamper protection is disabled. This possibly could prevent you from getting into a machine that failed to make the migration, either through direct access or through a remote connection. We also want to disable secure communications. We just want that client to be able to access any SEP manager that will answer. And under General Settings, we're not going to remember the last location. Disable that. Now remember, you need to do that 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time in order for those clients that may be out of the office, or those people who may be out of the office, to have time to come back in and actually pick these settings up. Now on this screen, the top window is going to be our SEP 12 environment. The window in the back is going to eventually be our SEP 14 environment. When we start, we don't really have to do anything other than make sure that if you do have any replication going on, you break it with this particular SEP manager, whatever it may be, so that we can actually install what we need to install for a SEP manager on this machine. And how we're going to start is because replication can only take place between the same version of SEP. We're going to find our SEP 12 MP9 SEPM install, and we'll start this going. We will right click on the setup, run as administrator, and for a lot of this we're going to skip ahead and pick it up when we get into the configuration manager. While the SEP manager files are loading, I did want to show you that we have already adjusted the policies at the My Company level, and those have propagated down by inheriting policies and settings from My Company group. However, on a group that does not inherit policies, you have to do the changes there as well. So you have to make sure tamper protection is off, enable secure communications is off, and don't remember the last location. Unfortunately, you have to do this for every group that is not inheriting policies. Now we'll move back over and we should be in the configuration manager. We click next. We are not doing a default configuration, we're doing a custom configuration. We're doing between 100 and 500 machines. Chances are you have way more than that. I would pick more than 1,000. We have 3 choices. We can install my first site, install an additional manager to an existing site, which would just be adding a SEP manager to a site, or we can install an additional site. Doing this allows us to use the replication. Our replication server is going to be the SEP12 machine with an IP address of 2.103. I use IP addresses simply because IPs don't change. And that is 2.103. We're going to use the admin account from that manager. And put the password in. This is going to connect this SEP manager to the SEP12 one. You must replicate your client packages and live update content between the two sites. This is going to make it take longer in a large environment with a large database. But if you don't do it, you will not have any SEP12 client packages in your new environment. We click next, it reaches out, we say yes, and now we have the site name. In this case, we're going to change the site name to SEP14, even though we're installing SEP12 to begin with. We're going to RU1 MP1. All the rest are the defaults. If your environment is different from this, make sure that you record this information so it's just the same as what the SEP12 one is. Click next. I do not want to run live update during this. It's going to take long enough as it is. We're going to use an SQL server, and it automatically deselects these. You don't manage your SQL server from the SEP manager. We're creating a brand new database. We're using replication to do it. And now we pick where our database server is. My database server happens to have more than one SEP manager database on it. So we're going to have to be a little creative here in picking the naming for it. The default port is 1433. We're going to use the SA logon. You can use a Windows authentication logon as long as it has the equivalent authority, permissions, power that the SA logon has. If it does not, your SEP manager will probably still install, but with errors. Enter my SA logon password, and this line is where my SQL Server data tools are, the client tools, automatically found. Now when I try to connect to the database, it's going to use the bcp.exe driver. If it's successful, if I can click it, it automatically filled this in. Now I already have these, so I want to change this to SEP14 database, and the logon for my database user is going to be SEP14. Enter a password. Make sure you record this. You would need it to do any adjustments later through the configuration wizard. We click next, and our database is starting to be built. We've finished our install, and we can start the SEP manager. We go back and look at our SEP 12 system. We can see that there is a byproduct of performing your upgrade to a brand new environment and migration that takes place automatically. We have now two management server lists where we had one before. If we look at this one, this is in the SEP 12 environment. We notice that we have the SEP 14 system in here at the top and the SEP 12 system at the bottom. We look at our default management server list. See that it is exactly opposite, and that the SEP 12 at the top is actually the one that's in force right now. We'll back and log into our SEP 14, or actually our SEP 12, until we upgrade it. Close this window. And now on this side in our policies, our management server lists, which were automatically created, we don't have to make them ourselves, show that SEP 12 is at the top, 14 is at the bottom. And this one will be just the opposite. So at this point, we want to make sure our clients are going to start showing up over here. And notice that they show up as online on a remote system, because on SEP 12 they still exist on this system where they just say online. That's how you'll tell the difference. So now these clients can be managed by both sides, but everything on the SEP 14 will say online remote. At this point, we have to break our replication because we need to upgrade the SEP 12 system, which is going to be our SEP 14 new environment. We have to break replication with it. However, it's very important that you do not delete the remote site. This section down here will keep a connection with the SEP 12 system and allow us to use the MSL lists without a lot of fuss in order to migrate the clients. However, we do need to break replication. And this is the SEP 12 system, this is the SEP 14. We're going to delete the replication partner. We still have the remote connection. We go to our SEP 12 system. We still have our remote site showing the SEP 14 one. We want to find our replication partner, the SEP 14 site, and delete that replication partner. And we still have our remote site. Now we're ready to actually upgrade our SEP 12 sites, no longer connected directly through replication, which means we are separated. We can upgrade our SEP 12 or SEP 14 site. However, our remote partners must always remain until we're completely done. And it's very important to realize when you start this process, you should be migrating your clients after you have created your SEP 14 system, not a week later or 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. You cannot make any changes to your group structures on either side, SEP 12 or SEP 14, during this process. If you do, those changes will not be equal between them. You could add a group in SEP 12, it will not show up in SEP 14 because it takes replication to do that. So do not change your environments until your migration is completely over. And hopefully you'll have a 100% success. Clients that fail to migrate generally have something wrong. So we're on our SEP 14 system, and now we want to upgrade it. So we'll go find our package for SEP 14 right here, and we right click on the setup.exe and run as administrator. And I probably forgot to mention this, but the server itself, not talking about the SEP managers, you must be logged into these servers, both servers, as an administrator. Preferably a local administrator, but you can log in as a domain administrator as long as you have the same power as a local administrator. If you don't do this, we won't have access to everything on that server, and that's what SEP needs. So now we're going to upgrade. You would generally want to make a backup of this, but the reality is, in this situation, SEP 12 has not changed. You could totally remove everything on SEP 14, SEP 12 new site you've been creating, remove the database, remove the software, and start over. And the same result would be where we're at right now. So the only database that possibly could ever be in jeopardy is the one on SEP 12. But you should always back up your database before starting any of these things. We're going to accept the terms. We're not going to back up this database because it's not necessary. I would encourage you to back up yours, but you do have a fallback position because you can always recreate this entire structure again without any damage to the SEP 12. You just do the whole process over again. And we're going to install. Install of the files has finished. We start our configuration, which should automatically open up to upgrade. We need our SQL Server login, which ours is SA. Our port's correct. We're not going to run live update during the upgrade. And our upgrade begins. Our upgrade is complete. We say next. I'm unchecking this anonymous data simply because this is a test environment. And we finish and start the manager. I've logged into the manager, and we'll go immediately check our clients and make sure they still exist. We're in SEP 14. They're online, remote. And we're ready to migrate. We now have both SEP managers up and running. So we want to make sure that we still have our remote partner set up on both sides. And we'll check the SEP 12. we do. We have no replication any longer. Now at this point, we check our policy. We open the policy components, we check the management server lists, and we had looked at the SEP 12 one previously, and we'll check the SEP 14 policy list for management server lists. We'll edit that first one, and we see that SEP 12 environment is at the top and the SEP 14 environment is at the bottom. So at this point, we are ready to actually migrate our clients. However, we do want to check one additional thing on this management server. I want to open up an Explorer window, get to the C drive, and get into the manager folder. Once there, go to Tools. What we want to do is run the Db Validator bat. This is going to check for the validity of our database. We're going to run that as an administrator. It's going to open up, we hit a key, disappears. We also back up a layer, wish to go into the Tomcat folder. We're not going to look at the logs just yet, but we are going to go to the etc, the etc folder, and we're going to open conf.properties. We're going to open it with Notepad. What we're looking for is right here where it says warning. We need to change this to finest. Doing so will allow debug logging to happen on the manager. And we'll see if we can save it. If we can't, we have to turn the service off first, the manager and web service, and then turn it back on. Sometimes you can save them. Come on. There it is. Finest is still there. In order to make that activate, we do have to turn off the services and restart them. So we're going to log off. We're going to open services. I think we'll just do it this way. And we'll restart the manager service and the web server service. I'll get in here, hit an S, get down into it, open up the tab, and we will stop the manager. And restart the web server. We've restarted both services, and we'll relog into the manager. Now if something happens on your SEP manager, the debugging will actually record it all the time, which is what you want. Catch it as it happens, because you're not going to catch it unless you try to reproduce the error, and sometimes you can't. Now we go to policies. We're going to adjust our SEP 14 policy, management server list. We're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it. And now we're going to edit this and rename it and readjust it. This will become our management server list. Come on. Our migration MSL for SEP 14. This list is not going to contain any information from SEP 12. So we'll highlight each one of the SEP 12 and delete them. The intent here is that any client that migrates from SEP 12 will stay here, because it will have absolutely no information on where to go back to. And we say OK. And we have to edit the management server list on SEP 12. So we'll copy that one. Paste it again. Highlight it and edit it. Migration list for SEP 1, SEP 12. On this one, right now it shows that 103, which is the SEP 12 SEP manager, sits at priority 1. We want to keep both the SEP 12 production site and the SEP 14 site in this list. But what we want is for the SEP 14 to be the priority. We will move the SEP 12 down in priority. When a client receives this list, it will use the SEP 14 site and attempt to connect to that SEP manager. But our safety, our backup safety, is if that manager cannot answer, is too busy because you have a large environment for any number of reasons, or fails because the client is actually not able to do what it's supposed to do, it will default back to it'll work its way down this list and eventually come back to SEP 12. So now we're prepared. So at this point, we go back to the SEP 14 system and we see that our migration list has nothing. So we will right click it and assign it to everything. And notice that the test 3 did not get assigned because it is not inheriting. We will also make those check marks. We assign it, we say yes, and now our migration list has been assigned on the SEP manager for SEP 14. Going back, we have options now. We know that we have, on the SEP 12 side, we have 3 groups that we're going to move clients from. So we want to do this in a methodical, controlled way. We don't want the entire group from the whole list of groups to be transferred at one time, which will overtax the SEP 14 SEPM So we want to avoid that. So in this instance, we're going to assign our management server list to test 3. And now if we come back, it'll take a few minutes for that to actually propagate down in the next heartbeat for test 3. And we'll check this slide for test 3. It says online remote. And it just changed to online. It moved. Hasn't finished yet. It's going to take the SEP 12 system a little bit longer in order to pick this up. So if we have groups of say 500, that would be the best in order to do this with, do your migration 500 at a time. You may have to actually take a group like test 3 that had 10,000 clients in it and break them up, because you will inundate that SEP 14 system. So we go back to our policy and we're going to assign to the rest, because I only have 3 clients. At this point, we can jump back to SEP 14 and we see that we're online remote. And we'll keep trying. We'll see whether or not we can pick this up. This depends on the heartbeat time. I believe it's 5 minutes, but I'm not sure. We can check this client, which I know is in the, I think it's in test 1 or test 2. And we are in test 2. So the client is, we have a little green ball now. Now if we hit this, it should change. And now all our clients are online on SEP 14. Now at this point, we assume that all the clients that could migrate did. There's absolutely no doubt that you will find clients within your environment in SEP 12 that won't move. And the fact of the matter is they're probably broke, but you just didn't know it. Also, you shouldn't be moving over the SEP 11 clients because SEP 14 can't deal with them. And your 2003 systems, your 2003 servers that you are unable to upgrade for a variety of reasons, you will probably want to keep in SEP 12. But going through this entire process has created essentially 2 separate environments, SEP 12 and a SEP 14. All the clients that have to remain SEP 12 are still SEP 12. Now, one of the things we do want to check on is the Db Validator that we did run. We didn't look at it right away because we wanted to give it time to actually finish the job. In a large database, it may take a few minutes to actually finish it. So we're in the Symantec Endpoint Protection Manager Tomcat folder, and we look at logs. And we'll go down to the Ds, and we have a Db Validator log. We are going to edit this. I don't want to edit that with Notepad+, with just Notepad. And here's how you read this. Each set of blocks like this will be showing you whether or not there's broken links. If you had policy broken links, they're going to be near the top or somewhere in the middle, depending on how big the log is. What we're looking for is link is broken for 0. Link is broken for 0. We go all the way to the bottom, and the bottom is the content for live update, and it says finished validating live update content successful. Now with large numbers of revisions, this will take a little time, but it is possible you may have broken links in your content. It's generally where it's at, not necessarily in policies. This is okay, so we just close the log. Now remember, you don't want to wait to migrate. Plan this out so that you can perform this change and immediately go into migration. Your migration, and depending on the size of your environment, may take 1 or 2 weeks. If you have 500,000 endpoints, it's going to take a while. During that time, you cannot change policies. You cannot add or remove groups, because your clients understand and your SEP managers understand that they are equal. So let's pretend that we're done. We've moved everything that we can. Nothing else will move, and we're investigating those and manually transferring those or reloading those or reinstalling those clients that are having a problem. We're doing that over to SEP 14, if at all possible. So at this point, we're going to highlight the remote site, which is 14. I'm sorry, this one is the SEP 12 site. This is a SEP 14 server, so we're going to break this away. We're going to delete that remote site. And now we've lost our internal connection to that SEP 12 site. Now we go to SEP 12. We're going to do the same thing. Nothing else is going to come back over here. Here's our remote site for 14. We're on SEP 12. We would delete that remote site. And now we've completely separated both environments. At this point, you need to go back and check your MSL list, because your migration is done. And this MSL list was our migration list. We don't need this anymore, so we can bring back the default one. However, we'll want to make sure we edit that, because we may have information in there. But look what happened. When we deleted the remote partnership, it automatically took out the SEP 14 information. This is the beauty of this. No mistakes are made. All we have to do is reassign this. Now, this may be not your default management server list. It may actually be the management list that you're using for a very large group. In any case, whichever one you're using for specific groups, you're going to have to make a copy of, and then name it migration for whatever the group. And in the end, you have to come back and assign the original policy back. We're just going to assign it all back to everybody. Whatever clients remain are now not going to have this. Is it necessary to keep this, the migration one? Not really. The clients that remain on here didn't want to move anyway, so we're just going to get rid of that list. And we go to the SEP 14 side. we're essentially going to do the same thing. We're going to reassign the proper MSL list to everything. And when we look at it, we see it's forgotten all about SEP 12. All done for you by the manager and the process itself. And now we can delete this list. We have successfully created a brand new SEP 14 environment. Your SEP 12 production environment still stands, taking care of clients that are unable to move for whatever reason to SEP 14. And we have migrated your entire environment, the ones that would, over to the SEP 14 environment. Our job is complete. Thank you for watching this video. On the next slide that pops up, you will see a reference to a knowledge document where this is very detailed in print, and this video itself is actually attached to that document as well that you can download. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. And here's the document that can help you with PDFs and this video. Thank you very much.